We can see my slides okay?
Confirm on the chat for me. Okay. Yeah, we can see it now. Awesome. Please.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me today. Yes, I am standing up. I'm trying to be mobile in my my presentation here, and I guess it's quite a theme topic, mobility and mobile, and as we all sort of come back to some form of sense of normality, it's going to be very interesting how the mobile workforce adjusts to coming back into the office and moving out of the office. And if anything, we haven't been doing as owners of businesses, as CISOs, as C-level executives, we've been tasked with trying to find, the balance between, operational efficacy and also, security against these very pervasive and invasive, ever-changing threats in the cyber threat landscape. So I'm hopeful that through my session today, I'll be able to provide some insights into a couple of things for you to take away and perhaps ponder, even implement, or even strike up a discussion between you and your peers. I'm more than happy to entertain any other discussions down the track around what we can do to help increase cybersecurity, resiliency, especially as we start to move back into a more fluid and dynamic working environment. Now, I've chosen a few pillars of importance today, and those pillars are perhaps, and I'm very hopeful, they'll be very familiar to you: people, process, and technology, in that order. And it doesn't really matter, from a professional standpoint, but or even so from a personal standpoint, in our personal lives, people, process, and technology are quite important, right? If we don't have the right processes in place, the desired outcomes from our people are just not going to be there. If we've bought the best and greatest piece of technological control that we could possibly, buy, but we don't have the right people to drive it, or the people aren't, tooled enough to drive it correctly, then we're not going to get greater benefit out of it. So that's sort of like the big theme of what I would like to sort of take the next, few minutes to discuss. But in this particular set of slides, what's the importance of the color coding? So we've got people in orange, process in red, and technology in green. And I would like to explore some interesting findings we've had from other data sources around these particular themes and some things that we can do about them. So there was a study run that interviewed a great raft of cybersecurity professionals in a variety of different sized organizations. And the results that came back were quite interesting. There were a few data points which I've been able to extract out of that presentation and map back to people, process, and technology. And one of them was technology. The green colored result was that around about 2/3 or 63% of respondents suggested that they would continue to update their security infrastructure to adequately address working from home, which is fantastic. Now, even though that we're, 2 years into the pandemic and we're starting to slowly come out the other side of it, I know in Australia, things are starting to just return back to normal, but there is a long way to go. And it's really good to hear from an organizational standpoint, businesses are willing to invest in their infrastructure to ensure that as their employees come back into the office and will naturally transition out and in, become that fluid pool of people, that they're willing to change technologies to keep up with that. So we're thinking like easy access gateways, like SASE-based gateways, zero trust gateways, those types of things to help people, identify who they are, what they're using, and give them access to things that they need to do their job. That's great. But there's still 1/3 of those respondents that perhaps have got their technology stack sorted, or perhaps don't think that any change is required and things will be okay. So technology in this standpoint, I don't want to focus on too much. It's more so the process and the people, because as I sort of mentioned before, you might have the best technology stacks around that money can buy, but without the right people or process to drive them, they're literally worthless. And I think this is the point that I'm trying to make today, is that without these three very interdependent type of functions, people, process, and technology, if they're not all working the best they can together, then there's going to be a fundamental breakdown in that structure, and there's going to be some issues at the end of the day. But moving on to process, which is the thing that I'm finding a little bit concerning about some of these statistics, was that 59% of respondents said that they were only going to take a stronger focus on business resiliency and the ability to respond to business disruptions. And if anybody has been in information technology in the last, 5 to 6 years, even in the last 3 months, ransomware has been a big problem. And yes, if you're playing boardroom bingo at home, at your office desk, wherever you may be, I said the word ransomware. Now, it's still a problem. It's a massive problem for us as defenders, because every day our customers and our prospects are coming to us to say, ransomware is still a problem. Do you detect this strain, that strain? How do you defend against it? Sophos has got some great technologies to reverse the effects of ransomware, but we'd rather not get to that point. Defending and preventing against those sorts of situations are absolutely key. So when it comes to looking at business resiliency, I really feel strongly about things like incident response plans, and more importantly, business continuity planning. Understanding where processes may need to change to ensure that if something goes horribly wrong for you and your organization from a cybersecurity standpoint, do you have the right processes in place to respond? Do you know what to do in case of emergency? Typically, if it's a fire, you smash the glass, pull the handle, the sprinklers come on, the fire department's called. That is a process. But if you don't have one set up for dealing with ransomware or cybersecurity incidents, it's only a matter of time, unfortunately, that something will come up and bother you, and you'll be very, very, very troubled by what follows from there on in. But then there's the people. The most important element to what I wanted to touch on today is the people element. Without the right people driving and following these processes and then driving the technology thereafter, nothing will go to plan. And it was a little bit concerning that only 46% said that employee training to combat weaknesses due to the pandemic fatigue around information security systems would be undertaken, which perhaps they've already had 2 years to sort of get their training right and their awareness well adjusted to ensure that people knew the challenges they face. But I strongly feel that in these situations where we're starting to see employees come back to the office, but then have that flexibility of going home. For me, I'm in that position myself where I spend a majority of my time at home and a little bit in the office. But it doesn't matter regardless of where I am, I'm very comfortable and relaxed. And I think although I'm comfortable and relaxed, it can be a double-edged sword when it comes to security. I could be more susceptible to making the wrong decision because of my environment and the comfort level, and I'm on a corporate asset. But at the same time, I could have an advantage by seeing something coming at me that's malicious, that is trying to pressure me into doing something like a spear phishing campaign, or somebody who's picked up the phone to try to call me and defraud me out of money. I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed in how I respond to them. So I think gauging where your people are and how they are going about doing the things that they do, wherever they are, security awareness training is an important thing, but there are other elements that I'll touch on next. Which brings me to things like rating your own cybersecurity posture, or where your maturity is on some form of cybersecurity maturity rating level. And depending on where you are in the world, and what sort of jurisdictions you have and what regulations as an industry that you might need to follow, there are different, GRC types of functions that you might need to adopt and adhere to. But when I'm discussing these things with C-level executives, even IT managers and security analysts who work on the coalface, there are these recurring themes that I'm constantly sort of like hearing. And some of them go a little bit like this. So when it comes to sort of like process, I hear many people say, I want to see better or more process refinement when it comes to cyber resiliency. And I think that's quite pertinent, because I mentioned things like cybersecurity incident response plans just before, but without the ability of being able to test how effective they are, or being understanding of whether or not, you've got one that's most suitable for you, I think a lot of organizations naturally want to see, is it right for me? Is it the best it could possibly be? Where do I go? How do I make it better? And then from the people standpoint, I think, as an employee of people, assuming that, because I've invested all the time and effort into employing a person, that is the best person for me and my organization and the role that I want them to fill. And a lot of us sort of get into thinking that, I think that they're doing a good job. And perhaps you've got, surveys that come about to sort of ask your employee how they're doing and what challenges they're facing and so forth, which are absolutely required from an HR standpoint. But I think from a specific cybersecurity standpoint, there's a lot more that we could be doing, in my opinion, to ensure that the people that are responsible for cybersecurity are tooled and deputized to a point that allow them to respond to sort of situations, making sure that they're right fit. Then there's the technology. A lot of organizations and people I speak to say, oh, I think the technology is good, but things are changing every other week. And listen, I have sympathy for everybody on this call. As a consumer of security products and tools and services, and me being a vendor, I do sympathize. There is so much out there. There's Sophos this and InterceptX that, and seeing that and tool Y. There's a plethora of choice. It must be super hard to make a decision on which tooling is right for you. Do you do it based on a glossy? Do you base it on a salesperson? How do you actually go about, getting the technology right, the right stack for you, your team, and your environment? So I do sympathize. There is a lot of abundance of choice, which creates confusion. So perhaps we can look at some ways in which we can go about refining those to look for the things that are going to best suit you. So that sort of brings me to some of the tools and the techniques that we could probably use and look to help build upon what we're doing currently to perhaps building some improvements. So from a process standpoint, I'll always love to draw on resources from NIST. Now, the NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and in this particular case, they've got a special publication 800-53. Now, that is a mouthful to say, but the best thing about NIST is that this is a government-sponsored environment, and they provide a lot of these documents for free, open source usage. So as an organization, we can take these documents, we can read them, we can then template them, and then roll them out for our own environments and for our own usage. And they give us some really good basis of consideration to then look at what we're doing in our own environment currently and say, well, perhaps we should be looking at this thing to tweak, or that thing over there to change to help us build a better positive outcome for security. So it's like, how do you measure that procedural effectiveness? What do you measure? When do you measure it? How frequently do you measure it? And what changes do you need to make? And documents like this are invaluable. So when I talk about incident response planning, to understand where you need to be from a security standpoint, documents like this are great resources. Go off and grab them, because some of the gems that I found within this document literally are as follows. An organization has the responsibility of managing security and privacy risks, it's assumed, and that security is a multifaceted undertaking that requires continuous monitoring of information systems and organizations to determine the ongoing effectiveness of controls. Now, there's a whole raft of additional bullet points, but I just think the analogy is quite pertinent that information security, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it, it's just like a diamond. It's multifaceted. There are a lot of different services that refract and reflect and include imperfections that could be in the gem. But as we spend time polishing each of those surfaces or facets, they become clearer, less occlusion, and we get a brilliant little gem at the end of it that was worth, well, more of its weight than gold. So I really think that documents like this can really help us on our way in building better outcomes for our environments if we're at a point where we've got any sort of cloudy sort of insight to, how secure and how mature are we as an organization when it comes to cybersecurity. But there is one thing that I will draw from a process standpoint back to technology. So even though a lot of the respondents in this particular survey said, yeah, we've got great technology. And, I tend to believe them because the results were quite compelling. It's that some organizations that perhaps think that their technology is currently the best, or they've chosen not to do anything about their technology that could be occluding their insight and their ability to gaining good understanding of what's actually happening. So if your technical controls that you've got at the moment are antiquated, that they're old, they're not modern, this could be a real point for, not exposing the telemetry and the insight that you may need to spot areas where you might need to make adjustments in processes to better secure the environment against users, threats, whatever it may be. And case in point here at Sophos, when I started at Sophos 15 years ago, we'd released this version of the tool that's on screen now. This is very old. And although it does things well, it spots malware using signatures, it's very different to what we're currently offering with our cloud-based next generation endpoint protection platform that uses a whole bunch of machine learning and deep learning to stop malware and threats and behavioral-based challenges that we face day in, day out. So organizations that we see still using this technology, they're not getting the telemetry that they need to see into their environment to expose, changes where they need to make in process. It's quite insular, it's inflexible, it just desperately requires modernization. So really look at the security or the technical controls that you've got at the moment. Although they might be doing one thing really well, are they not exposing you to other areas of concern that you should be taking into account to help you gauge effectiveness in your security portfolio? But what about the people? And as I said, I've said this maybe 2 or 3 times already, that people were absolutely important and pertinent to anything that we do as an organization. They are the foundation of any business. And there's a lot of those, I call them fancy business owners like, Richard Branson and, Warren Buffett with his investment, empire. And those, even in your country that you're in now, they're all about the people. If you build and foster the people, they will build your business and make it successful. And it's true. You can make a business as good as you want, but it's the people behind it and your customers and those that we serve that become obviously the revenue stream that give us a great quality of life. So from a people standpoint, and I mentioned this before, the IT team, the security operators, the analysts, the SOC team, they're the ones responsible for running a cyber resilient business. They're the ones that as C-level executives, you expect to keep the business defended against threats and to stop the bad threat actors from running away with your crown jewels and your information, your money and everything that you hold nearest and dearest. So I find it quite interesting that when we're using our own rapid response team to triage and forensically investigate an organization who has been compromised and victimized by an APT actor or a fly-by-nighter ransomware operator, that there was confusion around the people that were responsible for dealing with cybersecurity, but they weren't properly deputized into making decisions to help positively affect outcomes. So case in point, ransomware hits. The operator at the time sees ransomware ripping through the network and taking systems information offline, but the operator doesn't have the authority to shut down a cloud system or to isolate a server because it might impact the line of business applications. And that's a big no-no from the stakeholders or from the shareholders. Don't take off the business. So those types of situations can be quite confusing for a security operator that as a C-level, you expect them to defend, but they haven't been empowered to make those decisions in a timely, efficient manner. So again, referring to externally available, this is non-Sophos things, but the center of internet security's tabletop exercises. It might seem trivial to gamification of these sorts of processes, but getting the people in a room that you expect to be able to respond and deliver a cyber resilient business, the operators, the analysts, the IT managers, whoever it may be, C-level executives, marketing, and sitting them down and then opening up this book and say, well, let's run through scenario 1, responding to a ransomware incident. What happens? If we've been breached and somebody has deployed ransomware, what do we do first? The first step is to say, go get a physical copy of your incident response plan. Because if your information systems have been ransomwared, the information, the electronic copies of those documents are no longer available. So it's these types of things like, hitting the glass and pulling the button and having the fire alarms go off These types of processes are well defined, but it allows the people to play them out in a non-threatening situation, a simulation, if you will, to ensure that, well, if something does go wrong, people are better prepared and they're much more well empowered to do the right thing when they need to. So what can we do to fix things from this point forward? And in the last part of my presentation, hopefully this can be quite enlightening. I think continual education is a massive thing for any organization. And we touched on the people side of things with 46%, investing in resources to train based on security awareness. But I think educating our user base on, cyber threats is one thing, but really fostering those people, again, that are in the pilot seat, if you will, of defending the organization and keeping them cyber resilient. I think it's quite important to not only empower them, but to foster their interests. And I say this because, as an employer as well of people into the business, I've employed people for function A, but after observing them for a little while and seeing them having this natural, I guess, passion for something totally different, but within the realm of security, I've said, well, if you want to do that, let's do that. Let's find some place for you to flourish there. It's going to keep them interested. It's going to keep them, in your pocket, in your environment, and it's going to give them the ability to shine to their best. And then you can get the right person in another position, moving down the track. And who knows, that person might benefit the organization in a multitude of ways that you could probably never imagine. It's happened for me a couple of times. I've been somewhat lucky with employees like that, but it just goes to show you that people, again, are so important, and foster and feed them, feed and water them, give them what they want and what they like, and they will flourish for a long time. Build or implement a procedural system to help process enhancement. And I've put something very simplistic on the slides here, which is plan, do, check, adjust, or PDCA. It's a pretty basic sort of cyclic system that we can use to help implement and evaluate and make slight adjustments to processes and people as we move forward. And although it's simple, to a lot of us who have never done something like this before, who have never really sort of thought about it in this cyclic mentality, it can be quite, I guess, beneficial using services and toolings like this to help us in anything that we do. But from a technology standpoint, modernization. I mean, not having the right tools in front of you for a job is going to impact the ability for you to do that job. But in this day and age, in the cyber threats that we're seeing day in and day out, not having that ability to peripherally see what was happening before the attack started, and then being able to assess the impact after that attack arrived, is really going to jeopardize the ability for you to understand where you need to make adjustments in your processes or your people or your technology stacks to ensure that you can defend adequately against cyber events. But where do you start? Where do you start to conduct those reviews or those process enhancements, or looking at people and what they're doing? And typically, when I first started doing things, it was like dive straight in and bash away and get something delivered and a project delivered in the shortest amount of time possible without really reviewing it as I was going. But then reviewing it at the end to say, yeah, it's good or it's done. And then, are there any issues that we need to go back and retrospectively change? And I think it was that point in time after a few projects where I realized that, well, to make a change all the way back at the start is going to be extremely disruptive, if not massively costly, because I've got to make radical changes to the thing that I've just implemented. So I think we can all agree that incremental change is far easier than retrospective rebuilding of everything that we've done post a project being delivered. And I think with that, many of us may have heard of the term left shifting. It's big in the DevSecOps world at the moment, right? But I think, again, left shifting our attitudes towards anything that we do, especially in a cybersecurity context, is going to greatly help us improve cyber resiliency when it comes to coping with those mobile workforces coming back into and out of the business. And what I mean by that is to say, take that plan, do, check, and adjust, and start to implement that at the start of any project. Understanding where security can help, perhaps identify issues earlier on in the project piece so that we can make minor adjustments before we get too far down the road and then cause a big disruption at the end because something is broken or something has let a big, horrible security vulnerability permeate through the business. Now, I'm with you on this. Security is hard and there is no shame in asking for help. I mean, I think the best thing that we've done as an organization here today at Sophos is to become a cyber threat intelligence provider. Yes, we're the purveyor of technological controls and tools and services, but we do have a very healthy cyber threat intelligence community and we're bi-directionally sharing of information. People have asked for it, we've given it, and we've learned so much in return. And although we provide tools that allow you to effectively control an environment and mitigate threats and gain that visibility so you can increase your cybersecurity maturity, not just for the hybrid workforce coming back, but for any situation that might sort of arise in the future, we still do provide those services to manage it for you. And where I spoke about fostering people within the organization to get them to grow as security practitioners or to become GRC specialists or the ability to adopt the cloud and do things like magic in the cloud, as you're sort of fostering that education, we can help complement the security capabilities of your environment by providing that robust, strong, secure, monitored service while your team comes up to a level that you would expect a security operations center team to provide. And this is all made possible by the adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem at Sophos. And I promise not to talk about tech anymore, but this is just some of the breadth of products that we have, the services that we offer. But the most important thing that I mentioned before was the cyber threat intelligence. That's been underpinned by Sophos Labs, our own security operation team, of which that team is responsible for securing a security company. You could only imagine the stress and the requirements that our own internal security team are operating to, and the issues and the threats that they face on a day-to-day basis. All of those direct learnings we feed out to our customers through our products, but also exchange a lot of our own findings through our threat intelligence. Now, I hope that you've been asking some questions in the Q&A panel. We will come back to those. But for now, I'd like to throw back to our host and progress with the next part of the discussion today. So back over to you guys, and let's go from here on in. Thank you so much for listening too, by the way.
Hey, Oren, amazing session. You just took half an hour, so that's very nice, very crisp session. So let's open for Q&A. I'm not turning on my camera. There's some problem with my internet bandwidth today. I hope you hear me okay at least now.
We can hear you fine, buddy.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, go ahead, raise your hand, and we will unmute you so that you can ask your question. I see about 2 people have raised their hand. So Kiranji, I'm giving you permission or setting the permission to ask question. Madhu Bhai, you also, I've given the permission to ask question. Kiranji, go. Okay, Kiran has lowered the hand. So Madhu Bhai, go ahead, ask your question now.
Sure. Thanks, Vikas. Hey, Aaron, good presentation. Just one question. So if I have my own SOC, why do I have to invest in this? Any best practices, any ROI that you can help me share on that?
Yeah, I think if you've got your own security operations center internal to your business, I think being able to measure their effectiveness is one element. I know a lot of the success that we've had in suggestions around this area is to employ a third-party red team or purple team service to come in and actually conduct, simulations of threat actor behavior. So using things like the MITRE framework to level initial installations, lateral movement, defense evasion, persistence mechanisms, data collection and exfiltration, and then through to things like simulating ransomware events. These can really test your SOC team to make sure that they're performing to the level that you expect. So just keep that in mind. If you've got those ability to measure them, to measure their effectiveness, simulations are a great way. But again, there are other tools that you can overlay at the top, perhaps a competitive service in a monitor only mode, just to sort of see what differences, if any, they spot. I hope that answers the question.
Great question, Madhubhai, and great answer, Aaron.
Yes,
Shankarji,
it does. So if I understand correctly, so you're saying, these will be some time-bound consultancy service that we can look at for, more of an advisory service that we can look at for time-bound activity, whereas the software will continue for a longer term. This is my understanding, correct?
So that last bit just broke up there.
Yes, can I ask my question? This is Shankar Jadhav here.
Shankarji, just one moment. I think Madhubhai's question is not done. Madhubhai, can you try asking again? I think you are breaking in between.
Sorry, because sorry, Aaron, I'm on the road, so please bear me for a bad internet connection. I was saying, so if I understand correctly, so while the SOC can run parallelly 24/7, these are more of an advisory kind of a services, which or some time-bound services, which will guide on the right level of tools and technologies that may complement this the SOC services.
Yeah, so I mean, and I'll put in a plug. So for Sophos' own service, so our managed SOC service that we provide, we will provide a few different ways in which we operate. We can be purely advisory. So we can suggest where we see deficiencies, where we see recommendations for improving process, or if we see an attack, we can just simply advise you in the business to say you need to take action. But there is a neutralization or a response mode where we can act on your behalf and we can affect change. So if you want us to, say, proactively stop threats that we see that are formulating, then we can do that. And at the same time, we can provide recommendations or educate your own internal staff to help them come up to a level that we operate at. So there's different ways in which those services operate. Many of them are largely the same. There are some slight differences, so make sure you ask as many questions to those service providers that you can if you're ever going to choose one.
Okay, and just one thing to so those advisory services which you're saying would also include, let's assume, like I said, we may be using our own SOC services or may have our own SIM. So that would also includes baselining or looking at what better technologies around SOC and SIM are available.
Largely, they can make recommendations on what to transition to, but more often than not, they will use the tools that you already have in play to feed them the intelligence that they need to make decisions.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Shankar?
Shankarji, go ahead, ask your question.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. Aaron, there's one thing that we have noticed in during the Corona times, which is very difficult for many people. But we used to solve it in a long, say, a decade back by doing something called benching. There is a huge turnover of IT resources, especially in the security side. And even the vendors who supply these resources are finding it difficult because they would like to do just in time, save costs, etc. For instance, the chip shortage also world across is because people wanted just in time chips. Otherwise, they would have maintained a little stock. This could have happened. How are the vendors who are recently going through trying to take care of this, because we are a little uncertain what will happen if this continues in the same practice? Have they changed the practices? Are they thinking of what are the best practices in this area, etc.? Thank you.
So just to be clear, we're talking about shortages in cybersecurity professionals or for tooling or resources that would sustain like a security organization?
Both, because we have to run our SOC and we do take help of organizations like yours or some SIs, and we find this a bigger risk than many other risks, because the protocol, the software, hardware is okay, but the human risks are very high when a vendor cannot manage or we cannot manage. Thank you.
Yeah, you raise a very fundamental issue that has raised its head within the last couple of years, is that finding the right people, then retaining the right people is probably one of the hardest things to do. The thing that we have undertaken here at Sophos is to, once we get people in, whether that's from a graduate program or we've looking and chased after somebody that we want based on, say, their credentials, the way in which we retain them is to incentivize them around their output for their primary job function, but give them the ability to find and foster a project that is interesting to them. So I know a lot of what we do in our data science team The data scientists are responsible for building the mathematical models that allow us to spot malware, dodgy documents, and illegitimate websites and all that stuff. But many of them have got projects that are sustained and funded by Sophos to investigate how they can build other tools around, systems and processes to affect a better security model, like maturity model, because many of them are data scientists and security is second nature. But sometimes they might find a project that is not related to cybersecurity, but it's something that they want to do. And I know it's not something that every organization could probably sustain doing, but I just see if you've got high risk individuals that you don't want to leave the business, talking with them, discussing why they shouldn't leave. I think this is going to be a big problem, and hopefully there's some human resources people on the call that may have some input to that, but it is a big problem. I don't think I have a silver bullet to it, but we're trying our best to retain people when we get them.
Thank you, Aaron. But let me also give you all the participants a little feedback. What happens is we are also involved with other market participants who are smaller sized. So what they have discovered is one of the ways to reduce the costs at the same time retain the employees is that they take employees who are not qualified enough to get a job in a bigger companies. And they train them well. So those guys are there because they know if they go out, they will not get much more salary or respect or etc. And they stick on. But benching or keeping some people on bench seems to be the right opportunity. And we have been requesting in the recent purchase orders that the supplier should have a bench and should inform us in case of any requirement. They will be able to arrange for a person much faster than what the normal times are nowadays. Thank you, Aaron. You answered the question for me. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great strategy, Shankarji. I think we can explore it further later on. Udit bhai, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Aaron, for the wonderful session. I have a question with respect to the color scheme that you used right up front. People in orange, processes in red, and technology in green. So I couldn't figure out if there's any particular significance with associating P, P, and T with the respective colors that you used. What's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I think statistically a lot of the statistics were based from one report. And although it's the order of importance, in my opinion, is people, then process, then technology. From the color coding and the results that I was looking at from this particular CIO report was that technology seemed to be widely accepted in many organizations as being, they've got the right things in play. Like 2/3 said, oh, we've got great technology, or we've reinvested in technology, or we've refreshed things. People was orange because it was a bit of a concern regarding, we're putting training in, like more than half said that we're going to put, more training around security awareness. And I think just based on the last questions that Shankar asked regarding, having the right resources and keeping the right resources, I think the people problem, although the most important, it wasn't the worst thing that I saw out of this report, because it was the processes, that the things that join the people and the cybersecurity people to the technology that is responsible for defending us against cyber threats. Those processes, as many organizations, were severely broken down. So I found that through my own discussions, highlighting processes in red was a big thing for me as a realization to say, well, if you've got people that they are transitionary because they're coming in and leaving, that's the problem. The technology is fixed, let's say, but those processes aren't really properly defined to drive that tech. That's going to be a persistent problem. And maybe that's the reason why people are leaving. Or that's maybe the reason why you're not getting the most out of the technology. So I really feel that middle join being the process, that's something that we really need to address in the business to make sure that people stay, they're happy with what they're doing, they've got clarity on what they need to do, and they're going to get the most out of the tech and reward the business with being secure. So in my opinion, yes, people are most important, but process desperately needs some enhancements in more organizations that I talk to than not. I hope that explains why I color coded the things the way I did.
I'm now able to join the dots. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great
Thanks,
observation, Udit bhai. Next question, Fal bhai, go ahead, ask your question. And we still have time, guys. If you want to ask more questions, please raise your hand and we will unmute you. Go ahead, Fal.
Yeah. Hey, Aaron, really great session. A quick question. So since you're running all this ecosystem, very tech savvy and everything, how do you ensure that your people are suitable for, kind of security analyst job, right? And, I think you'll have to periodically test them as well, right?
So how do we do it, or how do our customers do it?
Yeah, so both. I think if you give your example, we'll probably learn from that.
Sorry, can you repeat that one?
Yeah, so if you can share your experience with your team, probably we'll try to learn from there.
Yeah, so from our own, from Sophos' standpoint, security, as I said, security is hard. And where we came from, we had very insular products that operated in very much well siloed containers. And it was very much well a organic sort of growth that we made as a company, where we then all of a sudden had firewalls. We had the CyberRoam line of devices, which were really cool. And then we had mobile control devices, we had our endpoints, and we had our cloud stuff, and all this stuff exploded. And we've got this vast, portfolio of technology now. I've been fairly lucky where I've been able to watch that happen as time progresses. But to new starters, they come on board and they go, whoa, there is so much that I need to learn. So from our perspective, we sit everybody down and we take a long time to educate them. So, at least 3 months for us to educate for example, our sales engineers to come up to speed on how technology works, how we do it, and why it's beneficial. And then they need to use it in anger, like, so to speak. They need to get a lot more au fait with it. And this has helped us challenge the business on how we do things internally. So we've been able to grow a security team out of people that were, for example, as a passionate sales engineer, which is typically my day job, there's been many times where I've been asked to go in and run security teams within the business because of I just like security. I like doing it. I like defending. I like the threats. I like the red teaming, the blue teaming, etc. So being able to identify people who have a real passion for certain parts of the tech, or the stack, or GRC, whatever it is, really foster them, because they become, pun intended, an infectious point of spreading that passion to other team members who might be interested. And then all of a sudden you've got this really cohesive team that can build really good security solutions and then offer them up as either products or services. I guess it's a bit of a 40,000 view of what we do, but I'm hopeful that sort of touched on the question, gave you the answers you seek there.
Yeah, kind of. Thanks for that.
Great. Thanks, Fal. Good question. We can take one last question before we get into Kahoot. So Parag, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vikas. Thanks, Aaron, for delivering the great session. It was quite informative. My question is, I know it may not have a straightforward answer, but I still want to ask that from security perspective, in your experience, is there any benchmark or a recommended technology stack wherein an organization following that can be reasonably secure?
Yeah, that's a lovely question with multitude of answers. I can't sit here and preach one technology is going to suit any organization from top to bottom. I don't think it's fair. And I mean, yes, we produce a lot of different products, but we do that predominantly because we'll come across an organization who needs to fill a specific gap, and they're looking for CSPM, or they want to be able to audit what happens from an identity standpoint, or they want to be able to ask questions that are endpoints to get security telemetry back. And there may be a solution that we have for them. Now, we would like to sell all of our customers all of our solutions and be all the end all, but I just don't think that is something that any one provider of tools or security products can do and hand on their heart say that that's going to be the best thing for that company moving forward. So there's a notion of having, all of your eggs in one basket, and that could be perceived as a risk. And I think as security practitioners, a lot of us look at technology and go, well, I need something from there, I need something from this. But it all comes back down to, you know, the people that you've got in your organization. What are they capable of driving? You know, do they have experience with Sophos, or do they have experience with, say, Trend? I don't know. So what are you going to get the best bang for your buck out of the person driving the tool that you're going to choose, and how do you come to a choice in making that decision? So I think from a framework, though, there are a series of things that I think an organization should be doing to ensure that they've got the best foot going forward when it comes to cyber resiliency. And things like, you know, planning for disaster, that's one thing. So that's more GRC. But from, you know, tactical and operational tooling, things being able to record everything that happens in an environment to like a SIM, to an aggregated sort of log collection point, and then being able to ask questions, or better yet, that system tell you when it spots something anomalous happening. That's absolutely a requirement, but that system has to span everything within your environment. There can't be any black hole, so to speak, of information that you can't see and question. So, I mean, it's a big question with a very big answer, but just in the interest of time, I hope I touched a little bit on perhaps an answer that might be suitable.
Yeah, absolutely, that helps. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Greg.
Awesome, thanks. So guys, there's a heavy drilling going on in the next apartment, next door. I'm not sure if you get the noise or not, but I'm getting a very heavy noise. So I'll try to stay on mute. Chitra, go ahead, run the count quiz, please.
Thank you, Vikasji.
Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So hope everybody was very attentive during the session, and most of the questions will be from the session, what Aaron covered. Thank you so much, Aaron, for a wonderful session. Hope everybody had a very informative time. So I'll just share my screen. And
just to mention, we have 203 participants today. Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. So we are going to run Kahoot now. For Kahoot, you can log in from the web. You can log into www.kahoot.it, or you can download Kahoot app. And yeah, enter the PIN, and the PIN is 9002726 is the PIN. So if you are entering, please enter your full name. No nicknames, no initials, no phone numbers. Please enter the full name. And please log in through the web or the Kahoot app. So I can see a lot of people joining in. Okay, about Kahoot, it's the fastest finger win. So whosoever answers it right and the fast, and they'll be the winner, or they'll be on the top on the scoreboard. Hope everybody was very attentive and will be able to answer it fast. So we'll wait for like a minute more, and then we are going to start, like exactly at 11:55 we are going to start. And there will be a cool prizes. The top winner will get the prizes, so which Vikasji will convey to you.
Yeah, we have a smart watch as a giveaway. So top 3 winners.
So
let's wait for 3 more people. See, 125,
okay.
123 right now. 125. Awesome. Go ahead. Let's start.
Okay. So here you go. So it's going to start in 3, 2, and 1. The first question. Considering the options, which is the correct order? Which Aaron covered during the CIO pandemic case study. So which is the right? Is it process technology people, people process technology, technology process people, or none of the above? Okay, I can see the answer so fast. It's like most of you have answered now. Okay, we'll wait for a few seconds to see how many of you answered it right. Okay, we have 111 right answers. Congratulations, guys. We'll see the scoreboard now. So we have Piyush Agarwal in the top, Aman Sood in the second place, Sridhar Sahu in the third place, Ajit Pandey in the fourth, and Sunita in the fifth place. So here is your next question. It's a multi-select question. You can select 2 answers. Where can you find helpful resources to aid in building your own cyber security? So is it a hacker forum, Google, National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, or policies and framework, or overrated? You can select 2 answers here. So which are the 2 right answers? Is it the hacker forum or the Google or NIST? Okay, we have 110 people answered it right. Let's go to the scoreboard. Okay, Piyush Agarwal in the first place again. Tariq is in the second place, Rohit in the third, Varinder in the fourth, and Prashant in the fifth place. And your third question, if you are unsure about what to do when you suffer a cyber attack, what could be the right process? So what is the process which you are going to follow? What is the first thing which comes to your mind? Is it send an email to everyone saying don't get hacked, stop inbound emails and outgoing web requests from users, conduct a tabletop exercise to test your response plan, pray for the best? So which is the first thing which you're going to do? Okay, so 51 people answered it right. And let's see. Okay, again Piyush in the first place, Rohit, Prashant, followed by Mustafa and Jaidaga. Good to go. Like let's see the next question. When implementing a new process or technology, when is a good time to start the review cycle? So when you're going to start the review cycle, is it right after the project completion or middle of the implementation? Or are you too busy to review and expect it to be flawless? Or from the start of the planning phase? So when you're going to think of start. Okay, so 112 people answered it right. Yes, that is right from the start of the planning phase. And the scoreboard, Rohit is back. So he is in the first place, followed by Prashant, Mustafa, Jaidaga, and Parag Kulkarni. So let's go for the next question. What is the new Magic Quadrant Gartner is releasing that will replace CSB and SWG? So is it Security Service Edge, Super Security Education? Security sounds excellent, some security excitement. So what is the right answer? Okay, so 96 people answered it right. Let's see the scoreboard. Prashant from second, he is in the top now. Rohit is back to second place. Mustafa, Jaidaga, Parag Kulkarni, they are in the top 5. So let's go for the next question. What are the key components of SSE? So you have multiple choice here. Is it CASB, SWG, ZTNA, DLP, RBI, FWAS, SD1, QS? So you have to basically tell me the combination of the right answer. So which is the right option here? Okay, 73 people have answered it right. So let's see who is in the top. Prashant is in the first place. Second goes to Rohit, followed by Mustafa, Kulkarni, and Niketan. This is the new entrant in the scoreboard. So let's go for the last question. What was the initial entry point for hacker into Colonial Pipeline to deploy ransomware? So was it phishing, drive-by download, VPN, CVE 2022-0901 exploitation? So which is the right one?
Chetra, this is a specific question that I had put in. I'm very interested to
Yeah.
see who chooses the last one.
Okay, let's see who answers it right, or how many percentage of people answers it right. Okay, we have only 11 people answered it right.
But you see, 41 people have answered CV 2022, which 2022 event has not even started yet, right? Come on,
Exactly.
what are you drinking? Okay, I think that's the last one, right?
Yeah, this was the last one, and let's see who are the top 3 winners who is getting the watch. Let's see. Okay, number 3, it's Varinder Kumar. Congratulations. Second place, we Rohit Rane, and the first is Prashant. And congratulations, guys. We will get in touch with you.
Awesome. Awesome. See the beauty of EliteCISO. Prashant is from Bangalore, Varinder from Delhi, Rohit from Mumbai chapter. Awesome, guys.
Yeah. Congratulations all.
Yeah, congrats everyone. Send me a WhatsApp with your address and we will deliver the smartwatch to you. That's great. I think what time is it right now? It's already 12:02. Okay, so let me rush. I'm going to share my screen and quickly show you how do you download your participation certificate. That's going to look like this. What you got to do is go to EliteCISOs website, click on events, click on upcoming events, and then click on CP certificate. Once you click on it, this will take you to a Google form. Put your email address over here, put your full name over here, and the password or secret to download certificate is Jaipur, right? Why Jaipur? Anybody from Jaipur today in the session? Because today on 18th November 1727, Maharaja Jai Singh of Amber laid the stone of Jaipur city. It is that old, and that's the significance of 18th November where we have a session today. Okay, guys, some history knowledge for you. Okay, now last thing that everybody is waiting for, we got about 325 registrations. Out of that, Gmail and Yahoo we have removed. So we have got about 280 entries in this list over here, and we have 202 participants in the session today. So okay, good luck to you guys. I'm going to spin it once, and the giveaway is a very nice foot massager. I'm sure you are standing, you have taken that challenge. Your legs might be paining, so I wish somebody who is standing wins this. Okay, guys, good luck. I'm going to spin it now. And the lucky winner is from Concentrix, Soumya Majumdar. Soumya, if you are in the session, go to the chat and say, yes, you are there. You got to be fast, guys, because I'll spin and later on, if you say yes, then your entry is null and void. I don't see Soumya as yet. I'm going to spin it one more time. I will spin it only 3 times. If your name does not come, then I'll keep it. Santosh from Financial Software. Santosh, if you are there, go to the chat and say yes, and you got to be fast. Santosh is there. Awesome, Santosh. Great. Congratulations. So it's a very nice foot massager. I use it personally as well. So the similar model will be sent to you. Great. Congrats, and send me a WhatsApp with your address. We will ship it to you. With that, thanks a lot, Sophos team. Thanks a lot, Aaron. Amazing session you have delivered. And thanks everyone for joining in. As you know, every week we do these sessions, 11 o'clock Thursday. So go ahead if you want to register for the next week's session that we are doing with Akamai. And the topic is very interesting, right? We always say that, okay, go for MSA. It's a very good defense. So in this session, we will talk about, is it just a security illusion or it's even a powerful defense? So it's going to be a very interesting topic. Go ahead, click on register now and register for it, guys. Sorry, we are 5 minutes late. With this, thank you, everyone. Bye for now. See you guys next week.